yes, I binged the entire first season of Sandman on Netflix. I'm still processing what I saw, but overall, as a super fan of Sandman, I could tell you I was extremely pleased. It basically covers the first 2 story arcs in the Sandman comics. First, Preludes and Nocturne, where Sandman is imprisoned by a group of magicians. And second, The Doll's House, which is about a human dream vortex that threatens the dreaming. I think the former was more successful than the latter, but I'll get to that in a bit. The question that I'm wondering is how the series will be received by those who are not fans of Sandman, because it does follow the comic books, maybe almost a little too closely. So there is a very episodic feel of some of the episodes, and it doesn't have the feel of one complete story arc that you normally find in a season on a TV show. If you've seen Sandman, please let me know what you thought in the comments below and whether or not you are familiar with the comic books. While you're there, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and do all that sort of stuff that you do in YouTube. Who am I? I am the booktube goddess, the #1 drag queen booktuber on YouTube. Now, when we look at adaptations, I have always emphasized on this channel over and over that the medium is the message. That means that when you transfer a story from one medium to another, the story needs to be transformed and, yes, rewritten to fit the medium, because every medium is structured differently to carry the story. Thus, Wicked the novel by McGuire is much different than Wicked the musical. Or Dune the book is different than Dune the movie, and so on and so forth. Many adaptations fail because the source material was not properly transformed. See Cats, the movie. So I was anticipating the Sandman story to be transformed in order to fit into the format of a television series. I was not expecting it to be recreated panel by panel. What I was hoping for was to keep the essence, the heart, the mood of the comics. But the plot itself, the storyline, I was assuming it would be restructured, and it was. But I was surprised how closely it followed the source material, which maybe isn't that surprising since Neil Gaiman was apparently closely associated with the production. For example, there is an episode that mostly takes place in a diner, and that episode really felt to me like the issue from the comic book, and I really enjoyed watching it. But pulling back, it felt really isolated from the main storyline, almost like a Twilight Zone episode, which you get a lot in comic books, but not so much in a television series where you are expecting a complete story arc from start to finish. Another episode like that was when we meet Death. It felt disconnected from the main storyline, like the diner episode, but I felt a little bit let down because, in my opinion, it was a really powerful issue in the comic book that stuck with me, but that didn't seem to translate to the screen, at least for me. Now, of course, many changes were made from the comic books. There was a lot of streamlining and rewriting done to the overall plot arcs, but again, I think it stuck surprisingly close to the source material. Now, there was a lot more gay sex than in the comics, but I wasn't mad about that. There were also quite a few race changes and gender swaps, which I never really have a problem with. I like that the new version of Lucian was as a black woman rather than an older white man, though I kind of wish she was a little bit older. I really liked Gwendolyn Christie, who you may remember from Brienne of Tarth in Games of Thrones. Here she portrayed Lucifer. But what was up with that hair? Maybe hell hath no hairdressers. I thought it was interesting that Joanna Constantine was used in place of John Constantine because Joanna was a character in the original series, but she was an ancestor of John Constantine. I also wondered if maybe there's a John Constantine series that they didn't want to cross over with. I mean, I really never have an issue with gender or race replacements because I think it is more important to have a good actor than try to recreate the exact image from the source material. Of course, there are exceptions. Anne of Avonlea pretty much has to have red hair, and I would have been really upset if Desire was not a non-binary, but they were, so that was that. The one character that I did not think worked as well on film as in the comics was the Corinthian, the nightmare with mouths for eyes. He was so much scarier in the comic books. I mean, just look. I was fine with the actor playing him, but I think even more perfect would have been Anthony Starr, who plays Homelander on Amazon Prime, The Boys, because he has that unhinged quality that I think was needed for the Corinthian. Oh, I should mention I did like the actor Tom Sturridge, who played Morpheus, aka the Sandman. His voice was deep and sonorous, like I said I was looking for. I'm not sure if it was his natural voice or if they added a little something during sound editing. He did look a little young to me at times, but that just could be my age. And also the shape of his face kind of reminded me of a young Kurt Russell. But the main question is whether the tone, the mood, the heart of the comics was carried over into the Netflix adaptation. I think it did succeed. You get that Neil Gaiman mix of dark whimsy with mythology and stirred in with the mundane. You rarely get characters who are complete monsters. You're always surprised that even the villains have these moments of empathy and kindness, and the heroes have moments of cruelty. You get swung from epic, world-breaking storylines to small, intimate human stories. Like I said at the beginning, I really enjoyed this series. Again, I'm not sure they actually transformed the story enough for the visual medium to appeal to a wide audience. Time will tell. But for fans of Sandman, I think it was very successful. Fingers crossed we get a second season. Until we meet again, may all the books you read and their adaptations be blessed.